शन्नो मित्रः शं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु मामवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ यश्छन्दसां वृषभो विश्वरूपः छन्दोभ्योऽध्यमृतात् सम्बभूव समेन्द्रो मेधया स्पृणोतु अमृतस्य देवधारणो भूयासं शरीरं मे विचर्षणं जिह्वा मे मधुमत्तमा कर्णाभ्यां भूरिविश्रुवं ब्रह्मणः कोशोऽसि मेधया पिहितः श्रुतं मे गोपाय ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्तिः पृष्ठं गिरेरिव ऊर्ध्वपवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वमृतमस्मि द्रविणं सवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्कोर्वेदानुवचनम् ॐ शान्तिः 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 So these are the mantras that we have already studied. Now we are going to start to study the next mantra, the next one, the fifth one. The text which is there in your hands, these are the 10 Shanti mantras, the mantras for peace. From the ancient Vedic texts, the word mantra means an advice. That's the simplest meaning of the word mantra. A mantra is that which gives us an advice. That's why a minister, an advisor in India is called mantrin, a mantri, because he gives advice. He's an advisor to the king. I'm told that the English designation of the Chinese language, Mandarin, also comes from the same word because it was originally the language of the courts and the advisors to the king, to the emperor, used to speak this language, and that's why it is referred to as Mandarin, the language of the mantris, which means the advisors. So the word mantra, the main point is that the word mantra means an advice. The mantras that contain advice as to how to find Shanti, peace within oneself. They are 10 in number, that's why Dasha, and they come from the Vedas. The Vedas are the most ancient collection of teachings on yoga from India. Even the latest part of those Vedas, which contain the quintessential teachings, because as the body of the literature started to grow in shape, in its content, the masters took out the very quintessence, the very essence of those teachings, and even those latest part of the Vedas, even they are pre-Buddha, which means they were composed and already, if we can say, written down, then already before the Buddha. So that makes them extremely ancient, at least at any cost more than 2,500 years old. So these mantras are from that part. Why we emphasize so much on the study of the Upanishads as part of our practice and teaching of yoga is that even before asana, Patanjali mentions swadhyaya, which is self-study. And what does this self-study mean? If we look at every Sanskrit traditional ancient commentator who explains swadhyaya, they explain swadhyaya basically as the very first step of swadhyaya is to study about oneself through the Upanishads. The word Upanishad has been mentioned by most of, and these mantras are from the Upanishads, that quintessential part of the Vedas. They are referred to as the Upanishads. Even the profoundness of and the depth of symbols such as Om, which we pronounce in the beginning of every session, cannot be grasped and comprehended and appreciated without going through the Upanishads. That's why recently a friend asked me that why do you focus more on Upanishads and not on the Yoga Sutras? I said, because I listen to Patanjali. He told me to focus on the Upanishads. So that's why, of course, our focus is on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras as well as on the Bhagavad Gita and on the Upanishads. But even Patanjali's Yoga Sutras mention the Upanishads in several different places. The Bhagavad Gita constantly keeps on referring back to the Upanishads. So in Upanishads we found really the very foundation. It's like going back to the very source of Mother Ganga, to Gomukh, to where the place where Mother Ganga really flows out of the, how would you call it, what's that thing called in English? Himani ko kya bolte? Glacier, yes, glacier, where she flows out from the glacier. And this is also partly because, again, repeatedly, even now, even just yesterday, again, I heard from someone that Iyengar Yoga is so physical. It is physical because the teachers and the practitioners of Iyengar Yoga have made it physical. But people blame Guruji for making it physical, which is not the case. Look at Guruji's life. Look at what Guruji taught. Look what Guruji wrote. It's not at all physical. That would be the greatest misunderstanding of Iyengar Yoga. And just again, I was thankfully reading yesterday, going through one of the books on Iyengar Yoga, which is Yoga, the Path to Holistic Health. A very beautiful book by D.K. Multimedia. There in the foreword, Guruji writes something very beautiful, that in all these 75 years that I have taught yoga, many of the students, they have just only focused on the physical aspect of yoga. And thus, that's his warning, thus they remain like a shallow stream of water which tumbles on the rocks, finding no depth and directionless, sometimes flowing into this direction, then into that direction, then tumbling against something, then again flowing into another direction, never finding proper direction. But with the deeper aspect of yoga, one's practice becomes like a peacefully flowing river, which has a clear direction and which has depth. So that is his analogy. And then I loved the quotation very much, so I shared it on my Facebook page. And I loved the comments that I get from my readers are sometimes equally enlightening. And one of my readers, she commented that it's like having an iPhone without internet connection. Yes, exactly. Having the best phone, but not internet connection, then you cannot use its... you have invested so much money into procuring something, and you cannot use its complete potential. It can give you so much. There is so much in it. It can give so much, but because there is no connection, you can't use it. And then someone else wrote, there is nothing worse than having no internet connection. So, Iyengar Yoga, by the way, the correct pronunciation, and I really worked hard by contacting my South Indian friends because it's a South Indian word. I wanted to understand the meaning and the correct pronunciation of this word. So I came to know that the correct pronunciation is Iyengar. That's the correct pronunciation in South India, Iyengar. And it is derived from a very beautiful, and it's amazing, I mean, how things just fall in place in the yogic history of India. It is derived from a Sanskrit word, Arya. Because Arya, in common language, in its perverted form, becomes Ayya. Arya becomes Ayya. And when it reaches Andhra Pradesh, like we have this suffix of respect in Hindi language, you know, such as people, usually Hindi-speaking people will not just call me Siddhartha, they will add G to it. They will say Siddhartha Ji. That's a common way of addressing. When we address someone in India, we add G just to show respect. So I was told that in Telugu language, the suffix of G is Garu, which I suppose must have been derived originally again from Guru. That is my supposition. But that's what they told, what the scholar, South Indian scholar told me. So from Arya Garu, this Telugu form, then came the Tamil form, which is Iyengar. And because Guruji was originally from a Tamil family, so that's his surname. So that is how the word, and the word, both words, the root of Ayya, the Sanskrit root of Ayya, which is Arya, and Garu, which is Guru, both are extremely beautiful words, because Guru means someone who shows us the path from light to darkness. We all know that Gu means darkness and Ru means light. So someone who shows us the path, leads us on the path from the darkness to the light of wisdom. Yes, gukaras tvandhakaras syad, rukaras teja uchyate. That is how the masters in Guru Gita, there is one Gita which completely focuses on Guru, the idea of Guru itself, and there the masters have explained it like this, that Gu means darkness and Ru means light. I have quoted this. Who says that? Yeah, that's what it means. But the verbal meaning, as per this verse from the Guru Gita, which is the central text of Muktananda's tradition of yoga, all they recite is and study and teach is Guru Gita. It's quite a respected text in that particular tradition. And the quotation there is very clear. Gukaras tvandhakaras syat. Gu means darkness and rukaras teja uchyate. Ru means light. So I don't know if George Feuerstein was a great scholar. I have worked with him briefly towards the end of his life. If he says something, he must have his reasons. Unless I don't see the reason, yes, that's what it does. Yeah, that's what it basically then. The light that dispels the darkness of ignorance, that is Guru. Yes, that's what it means. So he's completely correct in saying that. So that is the word Guru in Gar. And now coming to the word Arya. That is again, Arya simply means a wise person. It means, and one of the meanings that was given by the ancient grammarians to this word, ancient Vedic grammarians to this word, is that either three meanings are there. The root Ri means to know, and that's why the simple meaning is just a wise person. Ri means also to approach. So therefore Arya means also someone who has purified the heart to such an extent that the truth has reached it, the truth has approached it. It's that humbleness that we cannot reach the truth. What we can do is just cleanse ourselves, purify ourselves through the path of yoga and allow the omnipresent truth to enter it. Like when a vessel is empty, really empty, it is then that the water that is around it can enter it. If it is already filled with something, then the water cannot enter it. So that is the second meaning of an Arya. And the third one means that someone who is approached by others, someone who is approached by all because of his wisdom and because of his all-loving nature. Such a person is called Arya. That is the meaning of the word Arya. One of the ancient names of India was Aryavarta. Aryavarta means the home of Aryas. So it was a very much national identity which, though was not national but was deeply spiritual in nature, and that's why several cultures, even the ancient culture of Iran, which is Persia, ancient Iran, shares the same concept, the same idea. The idea of becoming an Arya is very central to Zoroastrian traditions, and in fact, the word Iran today has its origins in Aryana, and which then becomes Iran. If you look at the etymological derivation, which again means that the home of Aryas. So on one side, Iran was the home of Aryas, and on one side, India was also the home of Aryas. Some people now, particularly from the 18th century onwards, with German scholarship, archaeological and historical and Indological studies, this idea of an Aryan race came into existence. First of all, it is Aryan. I don't know from where this N comes in its English form. In Sanskrit, it simply doesn't exist. It's a word ending in A, not in N. I don't know from where it comes. And it has given the word a very strong racial connotation. And that's why it is a word that we avoid in modern times, because it has been given, sadly, such a beautiful word, has been given a racial connotation. Partly it was thanks to someone like Hitler, who first of all embraced it because it was a great idea, but then by the things that he did, rather than becoming a great person like that concept, he pulled down that concept to his level. And so first of all, because of that, partly because of the Indologists, it has sadly become a problematic word, at least Aryan, if not Arya. But when we look at the ancient Vedic teachings, where the masters have this beautiful goal, Vishwam Krinuda Aryam, help transform everybody into becoming an Arya, into becoming such. Obviously, they had no racial identity. You cannot transform people of different races into the same racial identity. It's not possible. So when they are saying that transform everyone into becoming an Arya, obviously they had no idea of a racial identity. And that's why that is something very modern. When we are dealing with these ancient texts and with these ancient ideas, we have to look beyond that. And that is what we need to do with words also like Iyengar, which are. So just so that not only yoga, but we also should understand the meaning of Iyengar. It's not only a surname, but it has a beautiful meaning, which I suppose I explained. Now, coming to the mantra that we are about to study, the fifth one, the key word in this fifth mantra, and I say the key word because it's the single word that occurs most of the time. Om Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnameva Vasishyate. Every time, I guess it is very easy to conclude what the key word in this mantra is. You just have to read it through. The key word in this mantra is Purna. This mantra is all about Purna. So we have to spend a few moments in understanding what this word means. Purna means, literally, it means complete. I think the best English translation, which is in fact linguistically related to this word, is full. Because Purna has been derived from root pur, which is the same Proto-Indo-European root, becomes in Greek polus, which then becomes full in English language. So full and Purna, they are linguistically related. For practitioners of pranayama, also the word puraka, puraka, the filling pranayama, which means inhalation. Inhalation, retention, and exhalation. So inhalation is also called puraka. Why? Because it fills, one fills the lungs with prana, with breath in it. That's why it is referred to as puraka. So Purna is that which fills everything. The word Purna refers to something that fills everything. Now, since everything is infinite, the logical conclusion is that that which fills everything also has to be infinite, because everything is infinite. That's why that which fills up everything, that also has to be infinite. And that's why the understanding of the word Purna, according to the masters, is that in the understanding here, particularly in this mantra, Purna is always explained as the essence which has no end, which is endless, which is free from finitude, finity, but which is infinite, endless. That is literally what the word Purna. So that which is infinite, that is Purna. Now, what is infinite? That is the question. What is infinite in this? To understand and to grasp infinity is always a challenging. Now the infinity of consciousness, but how to picture it? One can picture it through the infinity of space. That is where the metaphor of space always comes handy, is always useful. And in fact, if you look at the original context from where this mantra has been taken, I have given the original context number there. It occurs in the Shukla Yajur Vedas, Madhyandina Shatapatha Brahmana. If one goes back to that ancient text from where it has been taken, the very next mantra after this mantra is Om. Pure consciousness is like space, like infinite space. The very next mantra after this. Because without that mantra, it is very difficult to understand this mantra. That mantra is like, Om Kham Brahma. Yes. The same which is at the end of Ishavasya Upanishad, exactly the same mantra occurs also here. Because the metaphor of space always helps us to grasp consciousness. It helps us to explain consciousness in words. It enables us, we can use the words that we use for space. We can freely, without any problem, use them also for this inner space which we experience when we sit in meditation, as we slowly and slowly draw back into ourselves through the practice of yoga, this infinite space that can so easily, in fact, be felt within oneself. That the space out there helps us to talk about this space within. And for that reason, the masters, they speak of the Upanishads, the Upanishadic masters, they speak of the three types of spaces. I have repeatedly talked about them, and I speak about them again and again because like we practice Trikonasana again and again. By practicing it again and again, we acquire a new depth, a new understanding, a renewed understanding comes to us by coming back to these ideas again and again. That is what we do with the asanas, that is what we have to do with these concepts. As we speak about them, as we listen them, our understanding of those ideas also deepens. Our mind, our faculty of comprehension settles in them, becomes comfortable with these wide-ranging concepts. So, first of all, the space that the masters speak about is this, obviously this external space, which we experience all around us, which is filled with pleasure and pain. We see this in the world around us. pleasure and pain seem to be, if one has a very positive attitude towards life, then in equal amounts. And if those who have rather a sadistic or negative attitude towards life, then sometimes it rather seems that there is a lot more suffering than there is actually pleasure. Pleasure seems to be momentary, and suffering seems to be all prevailing. Depends how we look at it, what our attitude to that is. Then, because for the Upanishadic masters, everything is always about something within themselves, so then the second space that they speak about is the space within oneself, which we experience, in which all these thoughts, these dreams, first of all, the dreams that we see in the night, they must be happening. The world that we see in our dreams, that's happening somewhere. There is a space in which we see all those rivers, mountains, people, cities, everything that we see in our dream, that is happening within a space. And not only in our dreams, but also in our daydreams, where all these thoughts, these ideas, these emotions, these concepts, they arise and then they merge back into it. Feelings arise, emotions arise, we become angry because we feel somebody has behaved unjustly towards us. So this feeling, this emotion of anger arises out of nowhere. It was not there, and suddenly, few moments before we were peaceful, and then suddenly we flare up these emotions. This strong emotion comes up. And then again the next day, how are you today? Today I'm fine. I have digested it. Again we become better. So it arises out of nowhere, and then it merges back again into nowhere. What is that nowhere? Like things in the world outside, a paper arises out of nowhere. I have, as a person, as a human being, suddenly 38 years ago, I arise out of nowhere. I was never ever existent, ever. And then again, after God knows how many years, nothing. Again, going back into that nowhere. So what is that? What is that within ourselves? That is the second space, which all of us, if we would just look within ourselves, if we would be more with our thoughts, with our emotions, with our ideas, as a witness of everything that is arising, we will also start witnessing that inner space in which we see everything that we are seeing. That is the second space. And the third space is the same inner space, but in the absence of all these momentary occurrences. That's the only difference that is there between the second and the third. And that is a space that is experienced in meditation. When the mind settles, when all the emotions, all the samskaras, all the subtle impressions, all the memories, all thoughts and ideas which constantly arise through practice, they are allowed to become peaceful, to be settled, and just to be in the present moment, not to be thinking about something of the past, not to be worrying about something of the future, but just in the present moment, just to be in the present moment. That meditative state, that meditative experience of the masters, that is what they referred to, that is what they refer to as the third space. That is also what they sometimes refer to as Hridaya, which means the very heart, the very core, and that is more importantly how they refer to as Hridayakasha, the space within the heart. into which yogis enter through meditation. The second space is also filled with suffering and with pain and with pleasure. Like the external space, also the mental space is filled with pleasure and pain. But here the pain is less real than the external pain. Here it is more created by our concepts, by our ideas. It's pain that we have created through our attachments, through the way we cling to the world. So it is a pain that we have created for ourselves. It's a suffering, it's an internal suffering that we have created. It's less real than suffering, than the pain, than external pain out there. And the masters say that the third space is completely free from suffering. That is the beauty of the third space. And what they also say is that the most beautiful thing is that it is not something only that the yogis can only enter. In fact, all of us always are entering it. But we enter it without awareness. That's the only difference. Every night in deep sleep, when our waking state of consciousness has subsided, when our dreams have become peaceful, and that complete nothingness which we remember when we wake up, that complete absence when someone asks you, did you sleep well? He said, yeah, I really slept so deep. And I didn't even see a dream. My sleep was so deep, and now I feel so refreshed, so rejuvenated, so fresh today. We have to enter that space every night because it is that is the very source. That is what refreshes us. That is what rejuvenates us. But the sad thing is that in those moments when we enter, we have to take the help of deep sleep, which is a vritti, which is a mental modification, which makes us to forget ourselves completely, and that's why there is no awareness. That is the only difference that is there. The state is the same of deep meditation and deep sleep. The state is completely the same. That's why samprasada, the same word the Upanishadic masters use for this and also for that. But again, on one side there is no difference, and on the other side there is radical difference. And the radical difference lies in the fact that when we enter it without awareness. Yogis learn to enter that same space of complete peace, that rejuvenating space, that refreshing space, that space which gives so much strength and so much inspiration, They know how to enter it, remaining completely aware, without losing the awareness of the experiencer, of the one that is experiencing that state of consciousness. So that is the third space. Okay. Now, so this next Shanti mantra that let us pronounce it, that is about that space. Let us pronounce it. Om, 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 Purnamadaha, 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 Purnamidam, 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 Purnat, Purnat, Purnat Purnam 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 Udachyate 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 Purnasya 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 Purnam 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 Adaya 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 Purnam Eva Purnam Eva Purnam Eva Avashishyate 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 Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Now the whole mantra together. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. After speaking about these three spaces, what the masters also add is that in reality there are no three spaces. There is just one space. It is just the way we experience it. It is external when we experience it through the senses, and it is experienced as internal when we experience the same space without the help of these five external senses. And we try to look at it, we try to see it, we try to experience it, which what they call the divine eye, the inner eye of the mind, the faculty of comprehension. When we look at it with these two eyes, then we experience it as the external infinite space out there. But when we close and we give up the reliance on these external eyes, which are so much dependent on light, and all they see is in fact light, and that's why fail to see what is more subtle than light. Why not to give up the reliance of an instrument which has such limitations and take resort of a more subtle instrument, which is the antahkarana, the inner instrument, and look at space with the inner instrument, and that is then how it is experienced. That is the inner, what they refer to as the inner space. But then why those two types of inner spaces? Why not just one? Just to make us aware of that beautiful inner space which we experience every night in the absence of awareness, and to give us hope that we can experience the same by remaining completely aware through the path of yoga. Just to make us aware of the treasure that lies within ourselves. And then especially our dukkha, our mental created sufferings, which and our depressions, our grief feels like someone, like a poor man sleeping on top of a ground in which his forefather buried for him immense treasure, but simply because he or she is not aware of the treasure that is buried under his house. So he's sleeping over that ground and suffering for the poverty and being sad because of the poverty which he is experiencing. So it feels like that. That is in fact the example that the Upanishadic masters give in the Upanishads, such as someone who has immense treasure buried under his cot, under his bed, but doesn't realize that that treasure is there, and that's why is sad. That is the type of sadness that we have created for ourselves. So to make us aware that such a treasure is buried within ourselves, the masters speak of these three spaces. Ultimately, an infinite space can only be one. There cannot be two infinite spaces. That is the idea that the masters give. So this mantra also a little bit the context of this mantra is what is very important, and I should touch upon the context, in which context this mantra occurs and then where it leads to. Both things are very, very beautiful if one looks at the original text from where this mantra was taken. And I'm spending a little bit time on this mantra because this is by far the most famous Shanti mantra, at least in the Indian traditional circles. I would be amazed to find a Swami, a sannyasin, who does not know this mantra by heart. It would be the eighth wonder for me if I come across a Swami who does not remember this mantra by heart. I'm not saying that about any other of the mantras, but this is how much it is part of the culture. We recite it in the beginning of our food, we recite it in the beginning of our classes, we recite it in the beginning of God knows everything possible. When we have celebrations, we start our celebrations with these in most of the ashrams. It's a very important mantra, and because it conveys something very deep about ourselves, and also it somehow presents the very basic concepts of Vedanta, and also the second half of the very practical aspect of yoga. So much is hidden in it. And I was a little bit, timid to approach this mantra. That is the depth that this mantra really has. Otherwise, it becomes difficult to explain it. But let me also just touch upon the context. It occurs in the context where earlier various kinds of upasanas have been mentioned by the masters. And these upasanas are meditative techniques. They are meditative techniques which are not based on experience, but which are based on faith. So, and most of these meditative techniques revolve around meditation on prana. Like in pranayama, most of these meditative techniques, they revolve around meditation on prana, because their deity, the deity of those masters who reached the depths of the Upanishads, their chosen form of the deity was prana. They were meditating on it, they were worshipping it, all their prayers were directed to it. So, for example, what we find in the earlier sections of this Upanishad where this Shanti mantra occurs is the very famous, again a very famous mantra, which is also quite famous in the West. I repeatedly hear it. Asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Take me from non-existence into this pure existence. Lead me from death into immortality. Lead me from darkness into light. A prayer that was originally addressed to prana, to this life force present within the human body. A prayer that was directed to that life force by the masters. So that occurs earlier. So like this, there are various meditative techniques. And then the first 4 chapters are filled with these. The idea of Aham Brahmasmi, I am that pure consciousness, to become one with all those ideas have been discussed. And then in the beginning of the 5th chapter, this mantra suddenly occurs. As if now the student, after having practiced all those meditations, is ready for a deeper understanding. And then as I said, the next mantra is Kham Brahma, pure consciousness is space. So the metaphor of space has been used to understand this mantra. And we will have to understand this mantra only with that metaphor. Only then it will make sense. And then it will make so much sense that we will realize that there is nothing difficult, in fact, in this mantra, with the help of the metaphor of space. And then the goal towards which this is leading is very beautiful. And that's what I like about the Upanishads, about all this meditative practice, is the moral aspect of it. The transformation of a selfish human being into a selfless, all-loving, universally kind human being. That transformation where then the teachings lead to, they conclude by saying that all these meditative practices that we have talked about and all this wisdom that we have spoken of, including Om Purnamadah Purnamidam, if this has not helped us and is not facilitated by 3 things: self-control, control over one's impulses, that is where yoga comes into the picture as a very practical means to achieve that. First thing, self-control, control over one's impulses. The second, readiness to share one's acquisitions in terms of physical wealth as well as knowledge and wisdom openly with all. Dana, charity, sharing with others, openness to give, the second thing. And daya, the last thing, the most beautiful one, compassion. Compassion towards all. These 3 things. These are the 3 things that the master there says, tadetat prayam shikshet, everyone, it should be an integral part of all these meditative practices and all this wisdom, because these 3 things is that everyone should learn. How beautiful. They are not saying everyone should learn the Vedas. They are not saying everyone should learn the scriptures. Everyone should learn Bhagavad Gita. Everyone should learn the Yoga Sutras. These texts or those texts, they are not saying that. They are saying something so beautiful, that self-control, because that is what makes us selfish. That is what forces us to inflict pain and suffering on others. So first of all, self-control, then sharing with others, and then ultimately universal compassion. These 3 should be an integral part of all our meditative practices. These meditative practices, in fact, should help us to deepen these 3 aspects. And also this wisdom arises from such a practice and then further helps us to deepen these 3 Ds. In Sanskrit, D, the letter be. Because in Sanskrit, the way the Upanishad says it is Dhamma, Dana, and Daya. Dhamma means self-control, Dana means giving to others, and Daya means compassion, universal compassion. I think this is the place, this becomes the place where ancient Indian spirituality for the first time spoke in such emphatic terms of universal compassion, which is what must have inspired the Buddha to give so much importance to his idea of karuna. As part of the four Brahmaviharas, Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, as part of meditative practices, speaks of friendliness and compassion as one of the central practices for inner cleansing. So this is really the very first spot where we find the idea of universal compassion being mentioned hundreds of years before the Buddha, and thus can be said that it must have inspired him because he was born into this legacy, he lived in this legacy, he studied from teachers of this legacy, and he took it further through his own experience. So this is where then eventually, and the simple masters of the Upanishads, they conclude then by saying that look at the thunder. In the whole world, all message that this thunder is giving to humanity is da 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 da. You know, as if telling everybody to learn these three things. That is Akashavani, that is the divine word of God, teaching everyone. Akashavani, in mythological stories we have the divine speaking in that sound coming out from outer space and talking to. Here he's talking to us, to entire humanity. The sad thing is no one is listening. When he actually speaks, no one listens. They always wait for him to speak in our language. These are languages created by us. He will speak in a language in which he has created. You have to learn that language. And that is the language that the masters. It's a simple thing. You can take it as a joke, or you can take it as a profound insight into what nature is trying to teach us. Yoga has always been about such simple things, to see what is happening in nature and to learn from. And that is where yoga derives the profoundest of messages for humanity. I think that is the beautiful thing of yoga. So let us come back to this mantra again in our next discussion. Any questions? If there are any questions, we still have a few minutes. The bigger the group, the less the questions. The smaller the group, the more questions. I always thought it will be different. Yes, please. Yes. As full, yes. That which fills. As the void, yes. The word shunya again has been so many times mentioned in the Upanishad. The interesting thing about the Sanskrit word for shunya, which is understood as both as empty of everything else, and I think when we spoke of the third space, we were in fact speaking of that void space which is empty from everything that arises within it, in its pure nature, without influenced by anything. So yes, it is there, and the beautiful thing is that both the word shunya, which was used particularly by the Buddha, also occurs in the Upanishads, it also occurs in the Yoga Sutras, and the word Brahman, which is the prominent word in the Upanishads, like the Shunya is the prominent word in the Buddha's teachings, in the Upanishads, it's always Brahman. The interesting thing is that the derivative meaning of both words is exactly the same. Because though they are two different roots, Brahma is the root of Brahman, and Shvi is the root of Shunya, both mean to expand. Both mean to expand. So, the root of both words mean exactly the same thing. Now, what you want to make out of that, that's your own choice. But grammatically, that's an interesting thing in Sanskrit language. So, yes, I think it is just the difference is whether you describe it positively or you describe it negatively. If you describe it negatively, if you want to describe the same thing in negative terms, shunya is the more appropriate word. If you want to describe it in rather positive terms, purna is the more appropriate word. In our words, just in our words. That is only in our words. It doesn't change anything in the reality. It is just the limited approach of our concepts and the limited approach. Negative in the sense, because it is a denial of everything. You are defining it as a denial. And here, positive in the sense that you are saying that rather than referring it as empty, you are referring it as that which fills everything. So it's a positive description, just in terms of words. That's all. Nothing. Not more than that. I think the essence in itself, there is no difference in there. Yes?
Dhamma is also Dhamma in Pali, because in Vipassana, I don't know if it's in all centers, but the main meditation hall is called the Dhamma hall. Would that be the self-control hall?
I don't know. It depends how it is spelled. If it is Dhamma, then it is Dhamma. Then it is the Pali form of Dharma. And if it is Dama, without an H, without a double A, then it is Dhamma. So most likely, I think, because it's Dhamma there, because it's one of the central, the three ratnas, the three jewels of Buddhism. So it's most likely Dhamma and not Dhamma. Yes. Yes, please.
I'm just have a question about I just know a person like who am I without the national, without land, without where I'm from? What is the truth of that? Who am I?
That is exactly what we have to ask ourselves, because I think that is what Vedanta is all about. The masters say that the 5 questions that lead towards a sense of infinity, I will talk about this in my next session, hopefully, but the first question there is to ask oneself, Ko ham? Who am I? Just to ask this simple question, who am I? And the moment we start asking this question and we start realizing what I am not, and we start giving up, at least conceptually, we start renouncing, we start unloading. And then what we are left with, after we have peeled away all the layers of, I would say, an onion, what we are left with, that is what we are. After we have peeled away all the layers, of an onion, because what we were thinking was that I am this onion, Then we slowly and slowly, one by one, is this what I am? Is this what I am? We peel away each and every layer. And after we have removed all the layers, even the last layer of this sense of I has been removed, which is the most difficult one to remove. What remains, that's how you want to describe. If you want to describe it as nothing, fine, that's fine. I'm describing it as it is that thing which fills up everything. It is that space which fills up everything. That is the description here. That's all. That is the only difference. So it is as simple as that. Because it is, again, even in the question of that onion, what does remain after you have removed? What remains? You say nothing, because our mind is so much conditioned by those layers. That's why we say nothing, and the moment we say nothing, it's a beautiful idea if we can appreciate it. But by saying nothing, what we have concluded is it's of no value at all. The point is that nothing is indeed the most valuable thing there. If we give that value to that nothing, then our saying that it is nothing is beautiful. If we fail, because if we give only value to all those layers, but don't give value to what remains, then we don't give value to that infinite space. Then we are only giving value to the finite layers, not to the infinite. That is also, like it is within myself, it is also within that onion. It becomes everything. Then it becomes everything. That onion, the moment I'm saying only if, the moment we say nothing, and if we conclude that there is now nothing meaningful there, and we have stopped our search there, then we have failed. We have lost. And that is the catch in the description of nothing. There are also similar catches of describing it as something. There are drawbacks. Every word, every description has a drawback. But the drawback that Vedantins point out in a negative description is that. Then you think that it's of no value. But the infinite is that nothing. It is that nothing which is the infinite, which is the most valuable thing. That is what they want us to become aware of. It is so simple. It is the most simple thing. And yet, to make it a practical reality in one's life, to live in that awareness 24/7, that is where the path of yoga, just to train this tool, to be able to live in that awareness, to deal with all in that awareness, and to be inspired by that awareness. Nothing is not, even if you look at the scientific concept of nothing, recently new scientist came out with a very, very interesting book. The title is Nothing. That's the title. But if you see how this nothing is everywhere, and how it influences medical science, how it influences physics, how it influences chemistry, how it influences every aspect of science. It is amazing. Read that book if you have time. It's just a black book, with a black cover, and nothing with a round zero on top of it. That's all. I think that's the most important thing there is in science. And slowly, they are appreciating the value of that nothing, which the Buddha did, which the Upanishadic masters do. That is the secret of our happiness. Not that finite something, but that infinite nothing, which is here within ourselves, right now. So let us conclude. We'll come back to this discussion with a renewed spirit again on Tuesday, on the next Tuesday. Let us conclude with a few moments of silence. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। Thank you very much.